Welcome, everyone, to another community conversation. My name is Sylvie Richards. I am a trust and estates attorney here in New York City. This series of video conversations focuses on special services provided by trusted professionals whose businesses are aligned with my law practice and who provide services to our clients. If you don't know, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. This is a special time where we focus on the needs of people who are disabled or people who have special needs. In my law practice, I work with many families of special needs children. I help them set up special needs trust, fund those trusts, and also give advice as to who might be a good guardian or a good trustee for that special needs trust. But those are just nuts and bolts, just paperwork process. There are many different types of services and supports for people with disabilities, and all of them require nuanced services because they are truly emotional. So today I have asked two people to join me for this conversation. Both of them are very experienced and provide excellent services in this special space. Tatiana Sunik is a financial advisor and the founder of HERA Financial. She has a passion for helping women find their equilibrium as they are going through divorce or even after divorce, and especially if they have special needs children. Susan Bernstein is a mother of a developmentally disabled child. Professionally, she is also a certified divorce coach and someone who is very experienced with high conflict divorces, and particularly those involving special needs children. So I want to welcome you both.
Thank you so much for having us here today. It's such an important topic, and for parents and or guardians to know there's resources like the three of us really makes a huge difference, especially because we get it on a personal and a professional level. And there's a lot of people out there who need the help and sleep better at night when they have what you can provide for them, Sylvie. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Sylvie, for
I'm going
having
to
us.
begin with a question for both of you. There is a patchwork of government and private care services for disabled and special needs people. In your work, for each of you, what do you see as the biggest challenge in this deinstitutionalized environment?
Well, I'll start with that. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see in families that they have to become experts basically overnight. And as it is growing into this new world is challenging, they also have to navigate a government benefits, private care options, and a financial planning. On top of it, legal structure, for special needs trusts, while also taking care of a child and also attend to these new developments that are probably a bit of a novelty or maybe something that they have to really now, recognize. And it makes sense, especially given our environment, that a lot of these puzzles really don't fit into each other perfectly, right? that's where it's important to seek out help and really focus on what matters, is taking care of the child that needs you. So the financial decisions that appear responsible, such as leaving assets directly to a child, might not often be in the best benefit, and unintentionally you could actually disqualify your child from the eligible help that she or he can receive. And that's why the financial decisions have to be very carefully analyzed and consulted with the right professional to make sure that the moves that you make, that often can be irreversible, do not jeopardize your future, that this child will need to be attended medically, legally, and financially.
Yeah.
It's so true. It is. It's so true. And what you said, Sylvie and Tatiana, I understand as a mom of a special needs child. I understand from my past life as an educator and a researcher in the school and university setting. And now I understand as a certified special needs coach, really how to help parents and individuals who are going through it. There's so many issues in this patchwork that you discussed. There's constant changes, right? There's updates, and who's telling the parents that there's these updates? There's a lack of coordination from the medical professionals to the school to the legal professionals. And that lack of coordination is complicated and doesn't best serve the child. There is a sense of overwhelm from the parents' perspective, right? It's emotion overload, it's information overload, and the weight, the heaviness you feel of the overwhelm of how to do it and what fireball to tackle first. And then there's the long-term responsibility of making these decisions for another individual who's dependent on you, right? Whether there's a minor or a dependent adult, that responsibility. So certainly, as a coach, I train other coaches. As a coach, I started the National Association of Divorce Professionals Special Needs chapter to let all divorce professionals know the importance of asking your clients these questions and the importance of clients telling the legal and financial professionals like both of you how this is important, and then together implementing it and interweaving it. So it's really getting the individuals the clarity they need and the resources they need for their specific situation, because we know everyone's family, everyone's child, every situation is different, and to help keep them moving forward. And for me as a coach, not only with strategy, but with mindset to get them there.
Yeah, and as a mother of a special needs child, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned about planning for that child? And especially now, you mentioned that you founded this organization for divorced and divorcing parents of a special needs child. So maybe you can weave all of that into your answer as well.
Absolutely. And really I have three children, but my oldest daughter is the one who has the severe special needs and is my why, my inspiration. So, I have my doctorate in education and child development, but that was before I even had her, right? So I had the research base and the practical, and I worked with special needs children, but I wasn't a mom. And then I had her, and then I saw it in the light that you're talking about, and how to come to terms, right? The radical acceptance of no one has a crystal ball, but here your life is with this. And now what do we do with it? What safeguards do we put in place to financially protect them and legally protect them? And so, I talk to my clients about appreciating the little things and trying to look at the world through their eyes and remembering they didn't choose for it to be this way, right? They're not purposely how they are. And then, of course, as a parent, taking time for yourself as a caregiver, knowing that it's almost like that analogy with the airplane. Put on your mask first before you put on someone else's so that you don't burn out, so that you can refresh. And I should also say, Sylvie, I did also start www.divorcewithspecialneedschildren.com, and we run free support groups and summits, free summits. And so just helping individuals know they're not alone and there's resources out there.
Very, very important. And I spoke earlier about the need for a special needs trust. And for people who aren't familiar with what that is, it's an irrevocable trust that provides for things that government benefits would not. So it provides for a funding source for that trust, maybe medical needs that are not funded by the government are addressed through that trust, and things like special activities camps, right? So, Tatiana, help us understand what might be some really good funding sources to think about for funding a special needs trust.
So let me, just because I have a background as a financial planner holistically and I'm a fiduciary, let me just take a step back and kind of look at the bigger picture also. Because often when we fund these type of vehicles, I just want to remind, irrevocable means it is irrevocable means it's irreversible. So once you fund these type of vehicles, you cannot then take it back. So before you put that type of dollar there, you want to make sure you will not need that type of dollar in your own life, right? So that's where financial planning is very important. There's two components, the parents and also the children. So it's almost financial planning that's done twice. First, it has to be done for parents to really understand what is their life will be like with that child. And then it would be for a child separately, what does that child will require going forward in adolescence and in the future in taking care of those special needs that he or she has. Also, it's very hard to have a foresight as to what these special needs could be, right? Often the disabilities kind of clear cut, some of them are evolve, and you know, it can go one way or another as a spectrum. So I often encourage clients to have a sort of a high and low planning points where we maybe try to see a middle ground and account for that, because again, the key is once you fund this trust with a certain amount of money, there is no way to take that back, right? So you want to fund it with enough of that to also support the growth, because all the investment vehicles are there to grow, compound over time, and be deferred as to when the child needs it. Now, there is a concept of endowing your lifestyle and see what else can be left to a child. And often some families who have high net worth that are able to carve out a net worth, chunk of money to give it out and fund this trust. And sometimes it's not possible, that you need to look at alternatives such as life insurance trust. So if God forbid anything happens to your parent, that trust gets funded with proceeds from life insurance. So it's funded upon the death of the custodials. That's one type. And often if you do a financial planning exercise and see how much money that parents need, given that they will have this child to take care of, what is that portfolio, what is that endowment of that lifestyle looks like? And everything extra could be discussed as to how that could be handled. Maybe there are other siblings that can be distributed between them, but also in the special needs trust, right? So I'm sort of marrying this in the big picture. Now, the analysis can be also done as to what is the life would look like forward of certain amount of years for this child with special needs. What would we need to endow his lifestyle, his medical expenses, his physical education, even the special education? I would say ABLE accounts, and we can go into this more deep in another time, but ABLE accounts are special forms of vehicles that you fund education for special needs kids rather than doing 529s. They're a lot more flexible, and they really are serving that type of purpose. purpose. So second, and really more a conventional way of funding than taking chunks of that money that family might not need and really put it in that special needs and really diversify. The diversification is key because that trust needs to preserve, most importantly, that principle and grow moderately. There is no risk to be taken with that type of pot of money, and that is really important to work with the right professional who understands that type of animal as a special needs trust and understands the need that trust needs to come out with at some point in life and how it should be maybe adjusted over time to provide that liquidity down the line when the child needs, right? We don't want to cut the roots of the tree, and we consider the trust to be the tree, and the roots are growing and giving you the fruits from that, and that goes to benefit children and child's needs. And the third, it really is, again, the endowment concept. It's sort of could be more of a trust that can pass through generations. You know, if the child gets older and has its own course of life, then other kids can benefit from that. The endowment works just like school endowment. You do not want to tap into principal. You essentially live off an interest that trust generates. And at the end of the trust life, it almost left as much as you put in there, right? So idea is you maintain certain return that provides that type of kickback as an endowment. And that's ideal, but later down the line, that return could change and maybe tapping into principal could be a little bit an option. But again, it's a live mechanism. Trust is not something one time fund and done, and it's something that you need to revisit and monitor and have conversations with either the guardians, either the parents, and whoever is going to take care of that child down the line. So it is very much so like the longevity and as much as foresight as you can comes into that planning.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Let's shift a little bit from the financial side to the legal side. Unfortunately, the statistics of couples with special needs children divorce more frequently, right, than other couples. So help us to understand a little bit why this is so. And in your work with these couples, how do you help them to refocus their concerns back to the needs of their special needs child?
It's such a great question. So the latest research that we've seen, we have all heard half the country gets divorced, but the research shows that 80% of people who have a special needs child will divorce before that child is 21. So it's a very high percent. And certainly when the mother was pregnant, or if they adopted, they didn't know that their child was going to have special needs, right? No one has a crystal ball. And certainly it's not the child's fault. They're not purposely doing it. As we said, they didn't choose this. But often a child who has special needs, and of course that's a huge umbrella. It could be academic needs, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be psychological. So there's a whole range. But often those special needs are related to genetics and related to the environment, both those components. And many times in divorce, it's because one parent is difficult. Often it's not just difficult, because difficult can solve problems. It's someone who's unstable, toxic, mentally unstable, which means they have mental health issues, including addictions, which are considered mental health issues. And not to say the child will get those same mental health issues, but if one parent is difficult and unstable and has this mental health issues, often their genes also will have a child with some type of special needs. And so that's the basics of why the divorce rate is higher. A, there's more stress, but B, one of the parents themselves is unstable and has additional needs, right? So it makes it hard to keep the marriage together. And so when you're that occurs and someone finds me, a certified divorce coach who specializes in high conflict and who specializes in the intersection of divorce with special needs children, it's really helping the client get unstuck. I like the word unstuck, right? Someone finds themselves in this situation. They have a child, they're tied to them, and technically a lot of special needs children will not be independent at emancipation age. So it's lifelong care. And as Tatiana was talking about, lifelong finances. And so how do I help my clients who are parents of special needs children? It's really helping them gain clarity, figure out a plan, set boundaries with this other parent, right? Knowing that they're going to have to quote co-parent and communicate, but how do they do that? I recommend parenting apps where you can document everything. You certainly don't want the child to be a messenger. You don't want them to manipulate or gaslight the child, right? So using parenting apps that if for some reason they go back to court, the judge can look at that. We know text messages and emails can be changed, but parenting apps are made to be used in courts. So we recommend those, helping the parents really figure out what obstacles they want to overcome, which path they want to take, making them not feel that there's any options or only one, and how to overcome them, and getting them down that path. It can be baby steps or giant leaps and bounds, whatever their comfort level is, but getting them to the goal that they want, that is best for their child or dependent adult. And so my promise to my clients is they leave each session with an action plan. And so that's how I help them get unstuck. And that's one of the differences between a certified coach and a therapist. A therapist often talks and helps heal someone's past. A coach helps someone move forward and get unstuck.
That is a really important distinction, and thank you for bringing that up. Tatiana, what do you see in working with divorced and divorcing parents of special needs kids?
Sure. So, as a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst, I work with intact families, but I also work with divorcees. And I've seen Susan getting my clients unstuck. It's actually incredible that how she can move the process forward. That said, I've also worked with intact families that have not had contentious, right? And then they got divorced as a result. It could be that way too, right? So Susan's specialty is high contention, where I've also worked on both sides. And I say the differences in parents that are intact and amicably divorced, when they have that amazing communication between two of them, it makes the planning and the life so much easier. Because in a perfect world, caring for a special needs child in the not intact family really requires that good camaraderie and communication, and that really will serve well either parent and will really alleviate that burden. That said, if you are going to be in a high conflict situation, having a very good foresight, which is honestly, it's very hard with children depending on the level of disability, but have a good agreement, like what Susan mentioned, something that really does address every single thing. And Susan actually helps to review some of my clients' agreements to make sure nothing is left out, so we are not going to end up in court and addressing financially any situation, because addressing that financially also costs finances, right? So remember, trips to court are not free, and if you represent yourself, yes, but if not, often it's supposed to be a legal cost that goes into that. So a lot of these factors, such as the developmental, right, such as medical needs, planning for education, it becomes a little bit more complex because decisions have to be very accurately made not to disqualify the child from other help, either from county or government or state or federal. And in many times, depending on the disability level, that parent that's a primary caretaker can't even really go back to work, because finding qualified help these days is very hard. If you have more than one child that has special needs, you have to get two caregivers, right? If the severe special needs are there, then what does that happen to the benefits of cost taking care of a child, and you are progressing, in your career? Sometimes that sort of becomes uneven, and you have have to make hard decisions. That said, I've seen in families who were able to communicate and do things well, the benefit of one spouse continue working and earning well is actually serving well child in the long run, if there is ability to create that structure and pay for that, but for the above caretakers to continue progress in their career, that again, later years it will serve them well, because eventually you're still going to be retiring, you're going to still have to take care of yourself, and because you put on hold majority of your life taking care of this child, how are you providing for yourself in the later years, right? So there's a lot of juggling between, again, financial planning for myself and for a parent and for a child, right? So that's the aspect where we need to have a foresight, so it's not only dealing with needs of a child, but also how am I going to be able to take care of myself so I can still take care of that child in the later years. So qualified help, I address that. The dynamics makes financial planning especially important because the long-term plan must account for both caregiving demands and childhood long needs, such as medical, physical, if there are any special needs equipment that needs to be done, and that continues to be evolved, and that often is not something that you can see today, right? If that's something needs to be 10 years down the line. Again, to make sure you are setting up the special needs trust in place, that you still can qualify your child for many help options that's out there through government. And transportation and caregiving support, that's also a lot of times federal help. You want to make sure you are resourceful and you are tapping into the right communities to find that help. And actually, Susan is great at knowing those resources. So I would say, again, being mindful of all these three. It's like a triangle: the parents, the child, and then the legal system.
Yeah, and something that you pointed out is the importance. I mean, the three of us are tied in this process, right? That it's working as a group, thinking as a group, that helps to solve some of these issues, right? And we're going to get to a big one because there is a phrase in the special needs community, and it's this: count down to 18. And that's because when the special needs person turns 18, they are considered legally as an adult. So we always talk about special needs children, but I think we need to also realize that they are going to age into becoming adults, which means that all of their income, every benefit that they receive will now be calculated on their income, no longer on the parent's income. And so again, it's why it's important to establish the special needs trust ahead of time, right? So we have time to plan. And also some things that people don't think about, which is, what is the estate plan of the other people in the family? Because if suddenly this special needs person receives a huge bequest from grandma, it could jeopardize their government benefits, right? So there is a need for a very nuanced approach to turning 18. And also, when I work with families and establishing a special needs trust, I always have them think through the difference between a guardian and a financial fiduciary, right? So your brother-in-law could be the perfect guardian for this special needs person, but they may not be the best trustee because they do not understand the complicated interplay between the government benefits that the person will receive and also the private funds that are in that trust and how to balance those things so that the government benefits are never compromised. So, Tatiana, when you're thinking about this 18 cliff, how do you advise your clients to move forward?
Yeah, so it's important that the extended family member understands the structure, right? Every gift, any inheritance should go into the trust rather than directly to the child.
Yes.
And that's, I've seen often actually people who want a gift are very careful. They ask and they ask the preference. If they don't know, then they will, consult with guardians or parents. I'll also say, depending on the net worth that family has, you have to remember whoever is going to take care of that child might have to need to have some money to take care of themselves as to provide for that child. So the trust has to account a little bit for that as well, right? There's something that trustee might have to use for himself to be able to maybe, I don't know, work less or provide special room for the child. Like there, it's not just only about the child needs, it's also how the child plays into that family that, that might never happen, granted, right? It could be with the same guardian, the same parents all the time. But if that does, if the trust is able to have that provision and the funding for that, that's often is a huge thing and people don't think about it. Although if the funds are limited, then that's a different conversations. That said, with life insurance, you can often get a good life insurance policy that can give you that pour over if the guardian is going to have to step in and take care of a child. How can guardian be compensated for that as well? So there could be other structures that are a little more complex that we can't address in today's call, but that could be also created. Yes, the goal is to really to coordinate public benefits and continue that longevity and continue that child receiving them and not to disqualify while also still, have that ability to, receive other help because the government help is often very limited, right? That it only provides so much. So having that funding from the family is very crucial, especially if there would be time that the child will have to be institutionalized, and picking the institution that is maybe provides a better care, has a specialty to that specific disability, also could be more costly than a government provided institution. So financial planning can address those costs. You can figure out what is the lump sum that I need if I want my child to end up in that place or that place. Like there is this concept of present value of that dollar that in the future the child will benefit from. So that is what I work with parents and the clients. So I think
Yeah, and
I've answered
Susan,
it,
what
but
do you see with this age 18 cliff?
I felt it myself when my daughter went through it, and it is extremely important, right, for parents to know that if they don't have guardianship in place, that they won't have a voice at the table. They won't be heard, right? And so it's really important. And then I also talk to people about what resources are important, like you. Like I wish I had known you, but I didn't know you then. If I did, I would have used you. But I knew, okay, I'm going to have an attorney do the guardianship and the first and third party trust. But I found a nonprofit to help me apply for Medicaid and SSI for her when she turned 18, right? And even like, okay, you get it, the paperwork ready to go 3 months before. And then the month they turn 18, for example, my daughter's birthday is on the 28th of the month. You can apply starting on the 1st of the month they turn. So really knowledge is power. And I think you said it best, Sylvie, the collaborative effort of the legal, the financial, the emotional support, and especially in a divorce, my goal is to have them have the post-divorce bliss that they want and deserve instead of the post-divorce headaches and even possibly post-divorce abuse that we certainly want to avoid. So if we can do it right the first time with the right professionals and hold their hand to get them through it, we're actually saving them a lot of time, money, and headaches down the road.
And I would like to add, Sylvie, you are very thorough in your planning, so it's very important to have an attorney who's very focused and thorough and knows the ins and outs. That's what I seek out for attorneys that I collaborate with. The thorough in estate planning is everything.
So I want to thank both of you for this very important conversation and for your compassion in discussing these very common ideas and for privileging special needs people and people with disabilities, because as you said, Susan, you know, they are here. We want to welcome them, we want to embrace them, and we want to support them in every way. And for those of you who've been listening, Tatiana, Susan, and I are more than happy to help you with any questions that you might have. We want to be of support to you as you work with your special needs or disabled person. And so please feel free to call on us, and we will be happy to work with you.